Hello everyone, Joel here. I've gotta be honest, after Silksong, 2026 isn't yet reaching the same peak of Metroidvania scene. But if you're looking for some new fresh dopamine rush of finally unlocking the double jump to reach that one ledge, I've got you covered. We've scoured the depths of the internet to bring you the 15 best new Metroidvanias of 2026 that you can play right now. Kicking things off, we have VELASTER. Imagine if Dark Souls and a 2.5D side-scroller had a beautifully grotesque baby set in a dark fantasy dimension called Melem. You play as an amnesiac warrior slicing through literal nightmares, and let me tell you, the blood-soaked combat feels incredibly hefty. Now, I'll be totally honest, the game feels a bit system-heavy, and the user interface has some pretty rough edges right out of the gate. However, the developers are actively dropping hotfixes to polish things up. The sheer scale of the grotesque boss fights and deep exploration completely make up for those early growing pains. If you hate yourself in a good way and love punishing combat, you gotta give this a swing. Moving right along, Before I Go is ready to completely wreck you emotionally. Released this past April, this punishing adventure throws you into a haunting dreamlike world as the literal embodiment of an inner child trying to accept death. The platforming here is famously brutal, testing your patience like a surprise underwater escort mission. I personally felt that the pacing drags in a few specific areas and the timing on certain jumps is wildly strict. But despite those gripes, the deeply atmospheric world building is just phenomenal. The way it blends heavy storytelling with classic backtracking makes every hard-earned upgrade feel like a warm, tear-soaked hug. Switching gears entirely, Xanthiom 2 hits that sweet retro nostalgia nerve. If you're a boomer shooter fan but crave the puzzle exploration of 2D platformers, Captain Grisham's alien-busting adventure is built exactly for you. You're exploring the remains of Earth, blasting sentient war machines with a ridiculously fun gun customization system. Now, I admit the pixel graphics might look a bit too simplistic for modern visual tastes, but the tight controls perfectly scratch that classic 90s itch. Best of all, it actually includes a full from-the-ground-up remake of the prequel Xanthiom 0, built right in. It's pure gameplay over graphics, offering insane 2-for-1 value that procs from start to finish. Kotama and Academy Citadel drops you into a bizarre, high-tech academy where you use literal fluid-based powers to wreck robotic hall monitors and delinquent students. Your goal is to violently become the most popular exchange student in school to claim the Caramel Star. The combo system here is smooth as butter. Covering enemies in fluids and triggering massive detonations never gets old. I did encounter some unexpected difficulty spikes that almost sent me straight to detention, but the adjustable difficulty slider totally saves the day. Plus, teleporting back to your dorm makes exploring the massive campus a total breeze. Stepping into much darker territory, Foreign Sun is a massive brain melter of a game. It's a 2D cyberpunk Souls-like where your choices actually matter. You're climbing the Eternal Lighthouse, and depending on who you side with or who you accidentally murder, the bosses and entire biomes shift entirely. I found that out of the massive pool of weapons, a bunch feel a bit redundant and there were a couple of annoying softlocks early on. But good news, a recent patch just ironed out those progression bugs. With over 7 endings and brilliant sequence-breaking freedom, this one practically demands you to replay it over and over. Before we go into the list, I want to give you my recommendation for some of the best deals in instant gaming right now, especially if you're tight on budget. We knew that instant gaming always give us so many crazy deals for your favorite games, like these titles for example. I mean, can you believe these prices? If you love RPGs, there's no way you never heard of these masterpieces, and to think that you can get them under $10 or even $5, it's an absolute steal. All you have to do is just click my link in the description below, start searching for your favorite games and use the activation code on your chosen platform. By using my link, you're not only saving tons of money, but also helping me to support this channel. Alright then, let's get back into the list. For the retro sickos out there, we've got the unabashedly gory Saint Slayer Spear of Sacrilege. You play as a badass ex-soldier named Rudiger, wielding a holy spear to purge a corrupt priest in 17th century Europe. It's heavily NES-inspired and wears its bloody heart on its sleeve. Now, full disclosure, I found the map designed to be heavily linear, so it leans much closer to an action platformer with upgrades rather than a sprawling open-ended maze. The knockback mechanic can also be super frustrating, but honestly, when you are launching enemies into the stratosphere with a holy weapon, you really won't care. The crusade is just too much fun. Need a break from the grimdark? Little Nemo and the Guardians of Slumberland is here to tuck you in. This gorgeous, completely hand-animated adventure feels exactly like playing a Saturday morning cartoon. The music by Peter Berkman is an absolute bop, and you're fighting back the oblivion using literal toys and upgraded pajamas. I noticed the default difficulty is a bit of a walk in the park, which might bore hardcore gamers, but you can thankfully crank up the rank system for a proper challenge. And hey, if you're a console gamer, hold tight because the highly anticipated Switch port is dropping later this year. Gunning into the spotlight next is the steampunk masterpiece Clockwork Ambrosia. This game asks what if we took a run-and-gun platformer and let you duct tape 100 different mods to your guns. Playing as the airship pilot Iris, the weapon customization is endlessly addictive. Now I have to gripe about the lack of early fast travel. Running across the massive repeating map can be a total chore, and the upgrade material placement is admittedly atrocious. But honestly, the sheer joy of finding a new ridiculous mod and turning your grenade launcher into a room-clearing laser show easily overrides the tedious backtracking. Plus, the recent June hotfix really stabilized the overall performance. Plunging straight back into the abyss, we have Shattered Divinities. If you have a shrine dedicated to Blasphemous or Hollow Knight in your room, this pixel art dark fantasy is absolutely your next obsession. You awaken in a tainted land and immediately start getting aggressively humbled by insanely hard bosses. The build customization is incredibly deep here. On the downside, I feel like the game plays it a bit too safe, borrowing heavily from the genre titans without really reinventing the wheel. But let's be real, when the parry system is this crispy and the exploration is this massive, sticking to a winning formula works absolute wonders. Heating things up is Solateria. This is a jaw-dropping hand-drawn journey where you play as an amnesiac little fire warrior trying to cure the Shadow Plague. This game lives and dies by its parry-focused combat, and I mean that literally. I definitely found the parry windows to be unforgivably tight, making early encounters feel like slamming your head against a brick wall. But once you master the rhythm, you feel like an absolute god, chaining perfect deflects into massive fiery counterattacks. With tons of part combinations and secret cutscenes, getting good has never been more incredibly rewarding.
The balance has been broken.
Now, if you are a massive JRPG fan making the jump to Metroidvanias, Volunteer the Ascension is going to completely blow your mind. This game brilliantly smashes classic turn-based and action RPG party mechanics into a hand-drawn 2D world, and the result is magical. You play as Hera, bonding with a cast of fully voiced allies who actually change how you explore and fight. The only real bummer here is that it's currently sitting in early access with only a fraction of the full game available, leaving you craving way more. But the devs are consistently rolling out roadmaps, so jumping in now feels like an absolute steal. Prepare your keyboards, because Jump King Quest is here to ruin your life in the best way possible. This takes the infamous rage-inducing jumping mechanics of the original and turns it into a 2.5D multiplayer Souls-like Metroidvania. You can actually duel other players while trying to reach the top. Naturally, I spent half my playthrough weeping because one missed jump means falling for 5 minutes straight. But the dynamic multiplayer tomfoolery makes the punishment so hilariously chaotic that you simply can't put it down. It is pure, concentrated platforming masochism. If you ever wanted a 2D Sekiro experience but with co-op, Crimson Capes is the answer. You step into the boots of Milon the Tempest, hunting witches in a stunning pixel art kingdom. The swordplay is incredibly tactical. You've got feints, thrusts, and multiple stances that require real brain power to master. There's a bit hiccup though, since I definitely experienced some nasty crashing issues when trying to connect to multiplayer sessions at launch. Thankfully, a massive hotfix just rolled out that stabilized the servers beautifully. It might lean a little more heavily on combat than actual map exploration, but executing a perfect finisher alongside your body is absolute peak gaming. Just looking at MIO memories in orbit is a total visual marvel. You play as an agile little android exploring a decaying space ark overgrown with rogue machines. The watercolor style animations are so unbelievably gorgeous that I often stopped just to stare at the background art. Earning abilities like the grappling hook and air glide makes zooming around the vessel feel effortlessly cool. I do think the upgrade economy is a tiny bit stingy, forcing you to grind a bit too much for those sweet modifiers. However, the sheer flow of the movement makes every single second a complete joyride. And finally, rounding out the squad is the beautifully bizarre GRIME 2. Released this year, this surreal sequel somehow out-weirds the original. You play as an art mimic, absorbing your enemies and turning them into literal molds to fight for you. The environmental combat is next level. You can parry attacks with hand tendrils and throw enemies right back into hazards. Now, I found the mold micromanagement to be a tad overwhelming at first, and the early game felt slightly clunky until the mechanics clicked. But once they do, the sheer creativity of absorbing a boss's form to unlock secret pathways is unparalleled.